What's going on, everyone? Talen here, and welcome to another Marvel Future Fight video. Alright, so in this video here, we're going to be taking a look at Mephisto again. We're going to be doing some fights here, and today we're going to be doing a 5 out of 5 clear. We're going to be doing that on stage 2 here, so all of the clears are going to be on stage 2. And I did this video just because I happened to get him as my World Boss of the Day, not at the point of me recording this intro. That was yesterday that I had him as World Boss of the Day, but that gave me the kind of motivation to actually get 5 teams to clear him. Normally I was just doing like 1 clear here and there, mainly with Rogue, because Rogue is such an easy clear against Mephisto. As you'll see in this video today, the 1 clear that I did get with Rogue was actually a bit sloppy, but even with all of those mess ups, mistakes, stalling longer than I should have, she was still able to do that. You are going to probably notice here that the team is slightly different than the team that I was using before with Rogue. We are going to be using Beta Ray Bill here for his leadership, the 60% lightning damage. I still don't think this is a a great leadership for Rogue. It definitely buffs her 2 strongest skills, but I think I was doing more or better damage with just using what's it called, Elsa as lead, but also my Elsa does have a CTP of Insight on her, whereas Beta Ray Bill here, of course, does not have that CTP of Insight, so it could have just been that the combination of the CTP of Insight with the 30% leadership was outweighing Beta Ray Bill's 60% leadership that only buffs 2 of her attacks versus all of her attacks. And then, of course, we have Storm there for her tier 2 passive, no, her uniform, right? Uniform passive? Where did that passive come from? I don't remember, but since they buffed her, she gives an increase to elemental damage, so that is perfect here for Rogue. So I'm using Storm as a support here instead of someone like Mystique or Valkyrie, and this team seemed to work just fine for me. With the Beta Ray Bill and Storm combo, she didn't need to have more damage, so I didn't need to use like Mystique or Valkyrie. And I don't remember which team I used for the strikers. I might have used this one because I did my Rogue clear last in my pre-recordings, but I'm going to be showing that clear first because she's number 1 on the list here. But anyway, I was saving this team with Venom there for someone that actually needed healing, and I got through it and I didn't have any characters that needed healing because the ones I was trying out actually weren't working for me. So I ended up just using this team here. So you have to take a look at the strikers on top, or I may mention it when we get into the fights, but I can't remember exactly which strikers I used for a lot of my clears, but movement speed strikers are actually quite valuable here against Mephisto, and I noticed that throwing in 2 movement speed strikers for the most part was helping out my survivability a lot. Just being able to outrun his attacks was so much easier, and I noticed that I was surviving a lot better with these movement speed strikers. So if you're having trouble just staying alive but your damage looks fine, I would recommend try putting in 2 movement speed strikers, because it does make a very, very noticeable difference. As you can see with most of my teams here, we have 2 there, we have 2 there, and okay, this one I didn't have any on, so I know I used this striker setup for Sentry, because Sentry has bananas movement speed. So yeah, wait, let me show you my build. So now that that kind of intro stuff is out of the way there, let's go ahead and take a look at the build here on Rogue, and then I'll show you the other characters that I used and what their builds are. So Rogue here, we do have some Urus on her. We have a few Odin's Blessings. Her skills are all fully leveled up. Her Ice Weight set is fully awakened. We have Overdrive, and then we do have a CTP of Judgment on her, which this is probably best in slot for Rogue. The CTP of Judgment does really, really well on Rogue. Her uniform is still sitting here on Legendary. We need to get the last biometrics to finish her up, so we'll get that to Mythic at some point here, but I keep forgetting to get my biometrics for Rogue each day, so it's taking longer than it should. But anyway, that's my build for Rogue. Now if we move on to the second team, first thing you're gonna notice here is you're gonna be like, oh wait, he's just using Null, so you just skip over this. We know Null can do this, but actually no, this is gonna be a Spider Gwen clear. For all of these clears, I'm just using 1 DPS, so I don't switch or use Null at all in this fight. I'm only using him for his leadership, 60% to symbiote allies, which of course Gwenum is a symbiote, so she does get an advantage of that leadership. And then we have Valkyrie there for her tier 2 passive, and also she does have a CTP of Insight on her. So doing a full team here for Gwenum, this is the best that she can get, and her damage was very good. So I probably didn't even need to use Null here as leadership. I could have just used Elsa, or maybe I could even use the debuff lead as long as I kept Valkyrie in there. I'm not sure, but you'll have to form your own opinion on that when I show you the clear. The next team that we used here, which is, yeah, I know this one is a little bit boring, but we used Moonstone here. Moonstone is a nice easy clear. I was kind of running out of options here for kind of like easier clears, so all of these fights that I did were relatively easy. The Gwenum fight did take a few attempts just to get the timing down because, you know, Gwenum has a very long awakening skill, so that's one thing that was very tricky with her. For Moonstone here, she gets her damage in pretty quickly, so I didn't really have any issues with Moonstone. And oh yeah, I didn't show the build. I was saying I was going to show the build and I forget. So here's my Gwenum. We don't have all of her skills leveled up. We got the ones that matter leveled up though. Wait, I didn't show. We have some Odin's Blessings and some Uru on her, so I do have her built pretty well. The Ice Weight set, we do not have a fully awakened set yet. We have Overdrive. For our Obelisk here, yes, she is just rocking an Obelisk, so no CTP needed for Gwenum, at least for this clear. We have a max HP, crit rate, 200% damage proc, and then we have our uniform sitting at Mythic. And now if we go back over here, my Moonstone build, has it changed since last time I showed her off? I don't know. We still have no Urus on her, which I'll probably get around to doing that at some point. She just doesn't seem to need it. She just destroys everything. Those are her skills. We have Power of Angry Hulk fully awakened, and yeah, actually, I don't know if I showed her last when I put a CTP of energy on her, because I did just have a regular damage proc on her for the longest time, and I upgraded her to a CTP of energy just because I've been really liking Moonstone and how easily she can clear content. Yeah, no uniform, of course. And then the fourth team that I used here is going to be Sentry team. So we have Sentry. Hulk is in there just for the team up there with Mystique. And Sentry actually did need the help or the extra damage from Mystique there. So he did need a support, which I was kind of surprised by, but not really at the same time because I don't have his gears at 25 yet. So it seems like his damage is still taking a bit of a hit here in World Boss Legend. But anyway, he's got his own debuff lead, which is actually really nice here because you get debuffed very often, so you're always going to have his leadership active whenever it's off of cooldown. And yeah, like I said, Hulk was just there for the team up. So if we go ahead and take a look at my build here on Sentry, we do have a few Urus and a couple Odin's Blessings there. We have all the skills except for the first one leveled up. We have a fully awakened Power of Angry Hulk, and then we do have a CTP of Rage on Sentry. So that's his build. And then if we move on to the final team, which again, probably just another boring team here, but we are using Odin. I mean, everyone knows that Odin can clear this, but this is the team that I decided to use for Odin. We have Medusa here for her leadership, 45% increase all attack, which Odin surprisingly does need this. It's an easier clear with his own leadership in terms of keeping him alive and the survivability, because that debuff lead actually makes a pretty big difference, but I do need a support if I do this. So I noticed that I do need to throw in Mystique or Valkyrie if I use Odin's own leadership, but if I use Medusa here, her leadership is enough to get him to clear. I just have to be a little more careful. He's still a very tanky character though because of the heal that he has, so yeah, there wasn't too much issues, but I was getting knocked down quite a bit to low health and then have to regen that all the way up quite a few times. Whereas when I was using his own leadership, I was never really in any danger of dying. It was just the damage that I was worried about. And we do have a few team ups here, of course, with Thor, and I believe one with Medusa as well. Nothing too crazy, but anyway, those are the teams that we used. So let's go ahead and hop into the gameplay, and the gameplay will be in order in terms of how the teams were shown here. So if you want to skip ahead a little bit, then you can skip to whichever team you're more interested in seeing. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the clears. Alright, so with Rogue here, you've already seen me do a clear with her once before, and I think that was only one video I put up, right? Yeah, I think I've only put up one video on Mephisto so far. I did record like a solo video with Rogue, but I don't think I had put that out yet. Yeah, it's still sitting in, I think, my recording queue there, where I just have a whole mess of just video files laying around, which I don't remember if I've edited yet or not. But yeah, so Rogue here, as you probably saw from my first video, is a nice, easy kind of character to use against Mephisto here, because she has great damage, she's got great healing, she's got great movement speed, as you can see here. I didn't even need to give her a movement speed striker. I just kind of put that one on there because it was the last one that I had. If you have like a full roster like me, so almost every character at tier 2, well actually you can use strikers at tier 1 for this? I don't even remember. No, you have to have them at tier 2. You only have what is it, 8 or 9 movement speed strikers, so I think you can have enough for 2 on every team except for one team. You have to, no, you only have 7, because I don't have any movement strikers on my 5th team, so I have enough for 2, 4, 6, yeah, 7, so there's 7 movement speed strikers, so you need to kind of allocate them accordingly to make sure that you have enough for the characters that actually need it, because again, it looks like 2 is the kind of magic number to really notice a difference in being able to outrun Mephisto's attacks here. Because as you can see here, I didn't have any problem with it. I think I was struggling with Rogue before, but that was kind of before I had any practice with Mephisto. I've had some practice now, but I still just get clipped by all sorts of attacks and stuff like that, so I'm still definitely not mastering any of his rotations or anything like that. We've already gone we're already quite a ways through this fight here, so next fight I'll probably talk a little bit more about some of the mechanics that I noticed that can help a little bit, but anyway, well, we did get caught there, but luckily Rogue has healing and she's got enough speed to get out of there, but sometimes that's just enough to take you out. Oh, right there. Yeah, I remember what happened there. You just saw me like randomly run into his circle and get wrecked right there, and now I'm getting clipped. My nose was really itchy while doing this fight, and I was trying to itch my nose, and I like took my hand up for a second, and it made my other hand that was on the joystick push forward, so I went towards Mephisto instead of continuing to run in my circle there. So that's why I took a whole mess of damage right there. It was me trying to itch my nose, which I'm actually doing right now. For some reason, my allergies have been really bad the last like week or so. So yeah, something must be blooming around me that's really bugging me. But anyway, that's kind of what happened there, because normally I wouldn't just run into Mephisto's attacks just to, I don't know, show that Rogue can take damage and survive it. But anyway, as you can see, we're moving through this fight pretty smoothly for the most part, because even though I did, like I said, take a lot of hits there, Rogue was able to shrug that off quite easily. We do have Ancient One here, which I need to point that out. Ancient One is a fantastic striker against Mephisto here, because he puts those purifying circles, and my gosh, those things make a really big difference for a lot of characters. Just getting that debuff immunity, or cleansing the stun, cleansing the burn, or cleansing the unhealable, or the reduction in heal, because I think it just reduces your healing, doesn't actually block it, is very valuable. And Rogue, I'm just kind of like sitting in a lot of these attacks, but you kind of want to avoid quite a few of them. But like I said, next fight I'll talk a little bit more about which attacks I've noticed that you kind of need to avoid, which ones you can just take and not worry about, and that kind of thing. But now we're on the last bit of Mephisto's health here. This should be the final 9 bars, right? Because he doesn't have any more transformations, I don't think. I was trying to just do some damage here, which if you have debuff immunity, so if you've got your leadership proccing right there so it can purify that stun, you can do some damage during this phase and just ignore him and have him just hit you with that attack, and it shouldn't really interrupt you. But not a lot of characters can really do that effectively, because you still need to have like super armor or guard break immunity to do that, so just being able to purify that stun isn't enough. And now we're just getting these little final sigils here, and then we should get the last bit of damage. We get stunned there, of course, just to stall out a little bit more. This was one of the closest runs that I've had with Rogue. Normally she's clearing with a lot more time left, so don't let this run make you think that she can't really push much higher. This was a pretty poor run on my part. I've definitely had clears with Rogue where I've had more than a minute left, so I was like a minute slower than some of my other clears here, which is kind of ridiculous to think about. Alright, so right here at the start, this red attack that he uses, you can dodge this with an iframe, and you can be perfectly fine. You can have damage immunity and be perfectly fine, so that's one that you don't really need to worry about. If it does hit you though, it will stun you, so be careful about that. And then as you can see right now, he's got that kind of twister that really kind of is usually the bane of your existence during this fight, but in the first phase here, that twister does almost no damage at all, so you can pretty much just ignore it. Just keep doing your DPS, get your damage in, because it's not going to be enough to kill you. Sure, it'll do some chip damage, but as long as you have some kind of healing, which is definitely needed here against Mephisto, so you really do need to have a healing striker or a character with built-in healing to even kind of attempt this fight. And Gwen here, as you can see, I don't have any healing strikers, but she does have healing on that third skill that I'm trying to take advantage of, but I've found that it's not quite enough in some situations. And as you can see, we already pushed to the next phase, so it's one of the things that took me a bit of timing with Gwen here, is figuring out how much damage I actually needed to do, because in that first phase you can't see his health bar, so you want to make sure that you can spread out your awakening skill so you don't waste it too much, because a lot of times I was using my awakening skill and he only needed like half a bar or something, so I was kind of just wasting that. And right there, you want to make sure you're looking at his rage timer when he does this purple kind of chasing after you with the vortex attack, because he will one-shot you if you are really close to him when he enrages and starts doing that attack. So you want to switch or make sure you're able to run away and get a little bit of distance. One thing with Gwen here is you can see her damage is fantastic. Like, her damage is really good, but her skills have such long animations. It gives Mephisto way too much time to get into that vortex attack here in the second phase, because in the second phase that vortex attack does do significant damage and will kill you. So you want to make sure that you're timing your attacks so that that vortex is not going to ruin your day. And for the most part, you can attack him right when he finishes that vortex, and he generally doesn't go into a second one if it's the first vortex that he's done. So when you first get into that phase, he'll do like the attack at the start where he hits the ground and all the red kind of lines go away from him. That attack is unblockable, so you can't just have damage immunity or invincibility or go into an iframe and avoid that attack. It will pierce your invincibility, pierce your damage immunity and iframe, and it does do pretty noticeable damage. It's not enough to one-shot you, so I generally just tank that attack and get that damage in, because I know he's going to keep doing those vortexes, and those are just a lot harder to deal with and they do more damage to me, so it's more beneficial for me to take that damage at the start. I guess I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next phase, because we've already moved past here. But now we're just going into the snake phase, where we're just doing all the sigils here. And the snake phase isn't really that big of a deal. The damage, again, is less than the second phase, but more than the first phase, so it's kind of in between. We're kind of just nuking him down here with our awakening skill. Our awakening skill does a ton of damage, and also the fourth skill just does a ton of damage with Gwen as well. So she's able to do a lot of burst damage, which is really good against Mephisto here. But again, even though she does good burst damage, it's still longer animation than I would like to kind of avoid a lot of his attacks. But as you can see, she's able to get through this pretty easily, but a lot of that is because of her damage. Because her damage is so good and it's pushing him to the next phase, or pushing him to kind of like face changes or animations where you kind of, you know, show some kind of animation because he did a certain amount of damage. That kind of resets his attack string, so he doesn't do the vortexes as often. So that's one thing that was really helping Gwen. So like, say she was able to do that fight but not as quickly, she would actually have a lot harder time surviving, because he would be doing that vortex attack a lot more often, because he'd continue on the same attack string instead of be resetting his attack string, if that makes sense. And now here we have Moonstone. So Moonstone, I mean, you play her basically how you always play her. You just want to wait for that awakening skill and nuke. For this particular fight, I knew that I just need to do one awakening skill and then two non-awakening skills. So two 5-4-3 combos, and then that would be enough to push him to the next phase. Right there, I kind of messed up. That would have pushed him to the next phase if I had actually hit him, but I had kind of forgotten right there that he went into the iframe. So there we go. Now we got him to move to the next phase just after doing some chip damage, because I want to make sure my awakening skill is available here, because like I said, this attack here, I like to tank at the first part and get all the damage I can in right here. So that attack is the one that's unblockable at all, because it'll pierce everything, but it just doesn't do enough damage to, you know, outweigh the benefits of getting like a full damage proc in during that attack. So now we did the vortex, so I jump in to do another attack because I know I have time. So right after he does that first vortex, you generally have enough time to get a full attack in. But after that, if you don't push him to this next phase here, the next time he does the attack animation goes into a vortex, he can do up to 3 of them in a row. I don't think I've seen him do more than 3, but I definitely have seen him do 3 of those vortexes in a row, so you kind of have to be a little careful. So you want to wait for him to start kind of like swiping those fire attacks with you, or he's like swinging his hand and the fire's coming out, and then you know you have a little bit of time to get some damage in. But again, it's kind of sporadic, it seems, when he does those twisters, because sometimes it seems like I've noticed a pattern, then other times I'm like, okay, maybe I haven't noticed a pattern because he does it a little bit differently. So I'm not really sure if he has an actual set pattern. For this, one thing that I've found that is actually very useful for avoiding this is you kind of run to a corner and then you wait for him to start going towards you, like you don't actually move at all, and then you just run around the edge of the arena and you should be able to outrun it. So you kind of want him to start heading towards you and then you start moving a little bit. For some reason that seems to help me avoid the attack. I don't know if there's a reason for that or not, if maybe I'm just more comfortable avoiding it that way. If it's actually helping me, I do not know. But ever since I started doing that, I've usually have avoided that attack almost 100% of the time. So I've only got hit by that very, very rarely since I started doing that. But it also could be the fact that I've started using the movement speed strikers. So those are probably also making a big difference, because I don't know how much I've actually tried that without the movement speed strikers, so they could be the reason why I'm able to do that. But it's just one thing that I found that really helps with that, or kind of running in like a little bit of like a straight line instead of like curving too much. If you're at the very edge of the arena, kind of like what I was just doing there with Captain Marvel, and you're going around the edge, that seems to be one of the best ways to do it. But if you're not at the edge of the arena, just going like a straight line towards somewhere at the edge of the arena can help you to avoid it, because he has a little burst of movement speed at the end of that when the vortex explodes. But anyway, as you can see, we're taking it pretty slow here with Moonstone, and this was a little bit of a glitch. I don't know why the entire arena was black here for a little while. It'll go away after I get this last sigil, I'm pretty sure. But now we should just have to do one more attack here. Did I wait for the awakening skill? Yeah, I did. I don't remember if that screwed me over or not. No, we got it. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, your burst damage is really good. We could have done that a lot quicker if I was playing a little more aggressively, but I was just trying to keep Moonstone alive and looking for opportunities where I didn't think he was going to be using any attacks that I needed to worry about. So that's kind of the main way to play Mephisto, is just look for the attacks that do damage, and then look for the attacks that you can just sit in and they won't be significant enough to like one-shot or kill your character, because those are the attacks you're going to have to sit in to do damage to him. Because if you don't, and you're waiting like 100% for a clear open opportunity, you're just not going to have enough damage to kill him in time, because he doesn't give you enough of those openings. So you really do need to face tank quite a few of his attacks just to get enough damage in. At least that's what I've noticed. Maybe I'm still playing it wrong and I haven't figured out the correct way to avoid his attacks to actually take no damage, but I've just noticed that you really need to have characters with healing, because you are going to be sitting in some kind of damage during the fight here. So that's why Sentry here is quite amazing. You don't need to have any movement speed strikers. You need to have any healing strikers. And now that I think about it, I should have used some dodge ignore strikers, because I know how much better Sentry does against Null with dodge ignore strikers. That might still be the case here against Mephisto. I haven't actually tried him with dodge ignore strikers. I just have the attack strikers here, so I'll increase damage against supervillains. But I probably should have been using dodge ignore strikers, and he might have actually cleared this quicker, because against Null, it's night and day how much better he does with dodge ignore strikers versus just regular damage increase strikers. Because I got, what, like an extra 30 seconds to a minute out of him just by switching the strikers in terms of my clear time. So I could probably be doing something like that against Mephisto here, and then maybe I wouldn't even need Mystique. I could just do his own leadership, and then maybe two random, you know, support, or two random characters that have some kind of team up together to, I don't know, get a little bit of extra out of the 2 slots that I'm using up there for 2 more characters. But anyway, Sentry, again, he's just flying through this because he has healing, he's got crazy movement speed, so he's able to avoid most of the stuff that you need to avoid. His attack animations are short enough, with the exception of his tier 3, as you saw there. I had to kind of cancel out of that because I couldn't really go into another skill to be able to move quick enough, so I just switched over to Hulk, and then yeah, just running around here. So that's one thing you do need to be kind of careful of is, or not careful of, one thing to keep in mind is you want to have your switch ready. So make sure you're ready to switch at any given point, because if that vortex appears, it can take out your whole team almost, because you get hit by it, it freezes you, and then it kills that person, and then he's still doing the vortex. You try to run away, the vortex sucks you back in, then you do damage, and you're frozen again, and boom, you've already lost 2 characters before that 1 attack animation is finished. So just switch characters, you get that moment of like invincibility for like a second or something like that to run through. And right there I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, what was that damage all of a sudden? Because you do want to avoid those purple attacks, because generally they can hit you pretty hard, but I wasn't really expecting it to hit Sentry that hard because I have healing and everything else. But I'm still just playing aggressive with Sentry because I have a second life with him, so I don't really feel the need to try to, you know, slow down or avoid those attacks. I'm like, I'm just going to revive anyway, so I'm just going to try to do as much damage as I can here, because I noticed that we're kind of short on time, but not anything that makes me want to rush too much. So here we go, pop that tier 3, go into the 3rd skill, and I think, because I think this clear was really close in terms of the time, right? Yeah, because I think we get unlucky here, we get stun locked for a while. Actually, no, because he has the debuff immunity. I don't remember. I thought this clear we went down to like the last couple seconds, but maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of a different clear. But here we go. We got our tier 3 again. Pop that. And then we should be good with 1 more rotation. Yeah, right here I'm just trying to see if I can just do some damage, but we're getting guard broken, so it wasn't working out. I was like, I have my debuff, so I should be able to do some damage here. But we just get guard broken and knocked out of her attack. And there we go. That is a clear for Sentry. 28 seconds left. Again, I was timing out with Sentry when I wasn't using Mystique, so he did need a support, but I'm curious to see if he can do this with Dodge Ignore Strikers. If we can do that without Mystique, or how much quicker he'll be, if at all, because maybe it doesn't have the same effect against Mephisto here as it does with Null. So now we have Odin up here, and Odin, he just has really good damage and really good survivability. Again, I don't need to use any healing strikers with him. We do have movement speed strikers, because we do need that extra movement speed, because Odin is a little slow. So without that movement speed, I couldn't outrun like anything with Odin. Oh, that attack right there where he just did that wave of kind of fire and all the directions straight out in front of him, that is also one that will pierce your immunities and also iframe, I think iframe as well, but it doesn't really do enough damage for you to need to worry about it. You can just, another one that you can just tank and be okay with. Okay, there we go. We got the phase change there. Oh yeah, that's also something I didn't mention. For the phase change, you want to do that within a minute. Seems like the kind of golden zone there to do like a damage check for you. So as long as you can get his health bar to reveal within a minute, you should be good in terms of your damage. So then it's just making sure that you can survive and not stalling too much, because even though I say you're good with damage and that's the time you want to get to, just because you get there doesn't mean you can like leisurely stroll along, wait for him to do his attack animations, and then go in for your attacks when it looks like everything is nice and safe. No, you still need to play aggressive. You still have to take a few chances to do that. So keep that in mind as well. And yeah, now we're just gonna fly through a little bit with Odin here. I can't remember, I think this might have been the clear where it was kind of close, because I kept having to run away and heal with Odin because I was taking so much damage with him, because his animations again are a little a little long in terms of if you want to get that damage out of the 5th skill, because you want to wait for that to go off, and then you do your combo into the 4th skill. 4th skill itself is a pretty short animation, but when you add all of those up together, yeah, you're gonna be sitting there for a little too long for Mephisto's liking, because he'll slap you with a few flame attacks or get his vortex going. So that's one thing that is very annoying against Mephisto, is you just can't use characters that have long skill animations, which is really annoying. Because I was trying to get clears with Star-Lord and with Black Widow, but their skill animations were just too long. That was the only downfall. It looked like their damage would have been fine, but their skill animations were just too long that I would either have to switch, so I'd be switching way too much, or they don't really have a skill. Actually, I think Star-Lord has a skill that I could cancel into that's a really short animation. But Black Widow doesn't, so they're just taking too much damage, because if I let that skill animation play out, I'd get hit by the vortex, or I'd get hit by one of his more damaging skills, and then I'd just get one-shot and killed right away. So they just weren't working for that fact, whereas they're able to do Null with no problem, because Null, it doesn't really matter if you have long skill animations, because it's very predictable when he's going to do the attacks that you need to avoid, and he gives you ample time in between those attacks to actually get your damage in, whereas Mephisto's just constantly hammering the damage in. He's constantly doing attacks that you need to avoid. So yeah, that's just one thing that I find a little frustrating, because it's not really the character's fault that their skill animations are that long, where they have good damage normally, or they have good damage and normally good survivability, but since they're just getting punished so much for being in their skill animation, they can't do the fight because of that. So that's one thing that I don't really like about this fight. So you just have to find those characters that can do nice burst damage, or they may have a long skill animation, but that skill animation is enough to do so much damage in that time that he gets pushed to the next phase, kind of thing. So those are kind of your two options there against Mephisto. But let me know if you've gotten any of those characters to work in the comment section below. Like, what characters have you been using to clear Mephisto? Which ones do you find to be easy clears, and which ones are you kind of proud that you're able to get a clear with that you thought might not be able to, or it didn't look like they'd be able to? Because I'm kind of curious on that. Because one for me that I really want to get a clear with is Black Widow. I really want to get that clear with her, so I'm going to be trying a few more times. I've gotten quite far with Black Widow. I've gotten to this final phase here, but I end up running out of time because I had to avoid so many attacks in the second phase that he ate through my time. But yeah, okay, so this was a fight that was really close. As you can see here, we've only got a couple seconds left. I'm like, oh, okay, Odin, you need to, there we go, take him down. We got stunned so much in that last phase there with the snake. We're stun locked for like a good 10-15 seconds, so that was kind of ridiculous. But anyway, those are going to be my 5 clears against Mephisto here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully seeing these teams maybe give you some ideas for who you want to use, or what teams you could use against Mephisto, or, you know, just to see that these characters can actually get clears. I'm not sure that there was any surprises here in terms of, oh, I didn't think that person could clear Mephisto kind of thing. These are all pretty basic ones for the most part, maybe except for the Gwen clear. But besides that, all the other characters, you're like, yeah, I thought they should be able to do Mephisto, but maybe I just hadn't played him enough to know the rotations or that kind of thing. So yeah, that's going to be it for this one here. Hopefully you enjoyed, and of course I will catch you in the next one.